So this is the project which I'm going to mimic, but I'm not going to spend time doing so many bits and pieces. I will try to concentrate the flowers into a little cake card. So this is just a cake card which I've covered with a thin layer of fondant. Now I will advise you, if you want to have a play, to do something similar. Maybe you want to wrap the cake card into some cling film and just spread a thin layer of buttercream and do it. And you can pop it in the freezer as long as it's covered somehow so that it doesn't get deteriorated. And you can leave it to get frozen, and you can transfer it actually on top of a cake, so you don't have to do it in the last minute. So if you want to try this method, feel free to do so. Or you can just run a piece of fondant like I did on the cake card, and this, when it dries, you can just peel it off with palette knife and you can transfer it onto the cake. So it's good that this type of floral arrangement can be done far in advance, but it has to stay in the freezer or fridge if it's for 2-3 days in order to be still good for eating. So I'm going to start by preparing some buttercream, and I've got here buttercream like about 110 grams. I've just judged by the eye, but I'm going to make a mix between unsalted butter and icing sugar, which I've already sifted, and it will be a proportion of 1 to 2. So 1 part butter, 2 parts sugar. That's literally what I use for piping quick flowers or doing like quick decorations. If you put 1 part butter and 1 part sugar, it might be a bit too soft, but you can add a little bit more of the icing sugar as you go along. Okay, so I've got a hand mixer because being in front of the camera and having the mixer, it's just too much space and too much noise to cope with. So I'm going to start by placing just one of the attachments, and I'm going to put some of this sugar, not all the sugar. I want to still leave some on the cup, so about 1 to 2 parts. I hate this sugar, it goes everywhere. Of course, I absolutely hate it. Okay, so I've got the mix in here. I can try and incorporate some of the sugar, but it might not be so successful. So what I think it will be good to do is to put a piece of cling film. I wanted to organize this demo on Zoom and just broadcast onto the Facebook and give you the option to join me on Zoom so that we can actually talk, but for some reason, it's either my brain, which is not always sharp when it comes to so much technology. I've managed to make the connection, but only with one of the pages, the groups. I wanted to broadcast on my own group as well, but in the end, I've decided just to do it for you, as it was too much hassle. So I've made a little hole just to keep that icing sugar away from my table. Okay, once the icing sugar is incorporated, I can take the cling film away. So it worked a bit quicker and it did not make so much dust, so happy with that. And I will carry on with both attachments. Hi, Andrew. You can see this huge amount of sugar. I mean, for me, 1 part butter, 2 parts sugar, it means a huge amount of sugar. the fact that I've got so much sugar in here, it makes the buttercream automatically to become lighter by just incorporating a bit of air. But if you want even more lightness on here, if you want to make it even brighter, you can add some white. Now I typically prefer to use the Wilton icing color if I've got any, and as I've got now, I'm going to use Wilton. But if there is no Wilton brand available, you can use any type of white. Okay, so that for me will do. As I've mentioned, the icing sugar was sifted, so I'm not worried that I will have crumbs, and it just looks that is nicely incorporated as well. Now if I want to make it even whiter, I can add some more color. I'm not a huge fan of colors, I need to admit, but for me cake decorating is literally just decorating. I don't intend to eat all those colorful decorations. I know they are not healthy, and you will hear me saying from now on for quite often, do not use colors, do not use colors, they are not good for your health. But as I'm an artist, I intend to use them just purely for decorating. So I've picked here some of the buttercream, which I'm going to color, but I will color it right here on the surface, considering that I'm going to use palettes, and I've got here a full hand of palettes. Considering I'm going to use those to create the floral arrangement, I can color straight here on the board, and I can get different shades, and they can give that kind of natural look to my floral arrangement. Now if you prefer to color a larger batch into the jug or container where you've mixed your buttercream, that's absolutely fine. Now it's quite tricky to do it on here because it's very deep, so I'm going to pick whatever I've got left in here and put some coloring in here as well. And I'm going to use my red, as it's very deep, to do it in here. I will keep some white and put some yellow and do some green as well. So I'm going to take a toothpick or maybe a little palette, as I have to get a little bit more of this color to make it bright. So you see it's quite a lot of color for such a small amount of butter. But if you don't add enough coloring, then it doesn't turn up the color you might want. So it's a compromise, but it's definitely not going to be one healthy and good for your body. It's just pleasant to the eye, that's all it is. And I'm going to smudge in the color so it turns up quite deep red. That's Christmas red. I do get panic actually when I see all those advertisements about the Christmas coming and the fact that everybody is going to use colors on decorating cakes and cupcakes and shimmer dusts and sprays. And I'm thinking about the kids, how much color they will get during the holidays is just ridiculous. We have to just try and do something about those colors and just try and you know, make people to understand that they should be used just for decorating, as they are not healthy at all. Good, so I've got here this kind of a light red. So the one on the board has been sitting on the side now for a little while, and it got darker because typically the color of the buttercream gets darker as the buttercream is exposed to the light and the air. So it will turn up much darker than the shade I've got now. But if I want now to make it darker, I have to put more coloring, which I don't think is the purpose of the demonstration, to make things to look super red, super dark. So I'm going to stop here. But if you want, as I said, a darker shade, you have to put a little bit more coloring. Now in here I've got this part which I can make more like green, but you've noticed I've got traces of red on here. So if I will put a bit of red along with some green, I will get more like a brownish shade. So I will get a brownish shade of that green, and also the green finishing by using moss green from Wilton. You can obviously use a different type of green. You don't have to use the moss green, but this is a popular color, and again quite a large amount, as the winter leaves are typically dark green. Okay, so I'm going to get those in here and then just smudge with this, and then get some of the red and mix with the green to get that browny kind of shade. But you can also add brown coloring. You can also add cocoa powder if you want to get a bit of a brown shade. So definitely 2 shades of green in here. Okay, then some yellow. Oh, in fact I do have the yellow ready made, so that will be fine, so I'll keep that as white. Good, so that's enough with the coloring. I'm just clearing up as we don't need the mixer anymore. Make sure that it doesn't end up on the floor. And I will have a play with those consistencies. If you consider that the buttercream is a bit too soft, you can add more icing sugar if you want to, or you can put anything you consider it will help to get a thicker consistency. I've tried even with cornstarch, but just a small amount, and it works. But it's literally just whatever you want to try. I've got different palettes here. Some of them are quite pointy, and I do like the way that they are pointy, and they do typically help to get a very sharp finishing on the petals. Some others have got more like a round tip, so in case that you are looking for a particular type of finishing on the petal, then you have to get those kind of palette knives. Yeah, super pointy. You can use with a normal knife or a normal, let me just get one which I've got right here. Yep. So you can use a normal knife. The problem is, because it doesn't have this kind of a bend, it's very hard to work with. So you will have to make the petals just on the edge of the cake card, which is a bit annoying, as when you transfer, literally your knife will get in contact with the board, and that's the reason why those painting palettes have got this kind of an angle, so you can transfer your paint or your buttercream onto the surface without messing the whole thing. But it works on the same principle it works for painters when they do their paintings. So I'm going to use the the pointed ones, and I've got one large, one small, and just to make you to understand the principle. I'm sure you've got it and you've had an attempt before, but if you haven't, that's just my idea that probably you didn't try before. Let me just grab a white cake card so that you can see better. Sorry, excuse me, as I don't want to use that yet, just want to make you to understand the principle. So if I've got my buttercream in here, okay, and I get my palette knife, I'm going to pick some of the buttercream, and you see if I scrape some of that buttercream, this side, it looks really clean and sharp, yeah, so that's going to give me a crisp finishing on the petal, but this side is untidy. So what I'm going to do, I will keep smudging, okay, to tidy up one side, and then I will turn the palette the other side. And obviously I cannot do the same thing going in the same direction. I have to change the direction. And then I've got now a nice finishing in here, but this side got a bit mucky, so I have to redo it. And all you get is a nice pointed petal. Once you've got this in place, you go to the surface where you want to start your painting. You attach to the surface, and then you just wipe your palette across, and you get a petal. Super easy. And then if you want to add another one, you go back to your buttercream, just tidy up, clean the area, maintain everything nice and, you know, tidy, and you just do the same thing. Tidy up one side, tidy up the other, go back and tidy up again, go to the surface you want to cover and put the second petal. So that's the whole thing. It's not complicated, it's quite fun. And as you can see, the texture and the consistency looks okay, but in case that you feel that it's not stiff enough and you might get into a bit of a trouble, you can always add some icing sugar and make it a bit stiffer, which we'll probably do when we will do the other one, the white. So in here I'm going to start with, first of all, with some green leaves like we see in here. So we've got some green leaves on the back, so we'll take some of my green, excuse me, and I'm going to mix both so I get a bit of a uneven color in here. Okay, and I'm going to use the large palette, and I will swap on one point to the smallest palette, and I'm going to start taking some of that buttercream, maybe a little bit more, and then tidy up again, and then just get here to the point and then just transfer my leaf onto the surface. The only difference is that when you do it on a final board, you might find it a bit difficult to clean in here. So if that's the case, that when you pick the buttercream, you want to make a shorter leaf or petal, you get a little less buttercream, and you try to concentrate and shape this correctly before you transfer it onto the surface. So I get a little bit on here, and I get a little bit on here, and same in here. And if the edges are too messy and I don't want them to get onto my cake, I can tidy up before transferring. Yeah. Or I can clean with tissue or, you know, with the brush, whatever. And I can just place, oh, I still got a bit on the side, tidy up, place that in here and do it. So less excess, but you can also scrape off if the surface will allow you. If you work on buttercream cake, on a buttercream cake, for example, straight on the cake, and if the cake is chilled, then that would be fine. Yeah. But if the buttercream is soft on that cake, it will be somehow impossible for you to finish. So I would suggest you to chill the cake first. Then also, while the cake is chilled and your buttercream might be soft, that coolness of the cake will cool out the petals very easy. So when you put the next one and the next one, it will be quite easy to maneuver the whole amount of buttercream. So again, just putting another one, scraping some buttercream and going on the other side. Again, tidy up and going to put another one, just trying to be a bit artistic in here. Okay, and then again, just some more of that buttercream. Left, right. Tidying up. And so on. And when I finish, I can start with whatever amount of leaves I want to put as a background. As like any painting process, we start by building up from the back to the top. So maybe just one more, or let me just try the smallest palette knife to see how that one works like. That's much tiny, smaller than the one I've used so far. Okay, that it will kind of give that sort of effect. So similar effect, but in a smaller scale again. And those palette knives, I bought them from eBay, very cheap. I can't remember the price, but you get a huge amount of pallets into a set, and then obviously you use the ones you like. So enough with my leaves for now. I will just get to my red buttercream, so get some in here and do the same thing. Okay, again tidy up till you are 100% sure that both edges look nice, because that's the whole thing. Depends on the amount of buttercream you get. If it's too much, you try to clean on one side, but the excess buttercream is pushed on the other side, so you have to clean that one. And you just need to get to the stage that you are happy, it looks nice, and you are about to just place it on whatever spot you want to. And I'm also trying to apply a bit of pressure so that I get the base of the petal quite wide. Okay, and going to get another one. Okay, going in here, and again. So don't forget to get your damp cloth or some tissue handy. I might get some more tissue just in case that it will get too messy. And this poinsettia anyway has got so many petals, you don't have to follow a rule necessary on how many to paint, and it's quite easy and fun to make. If you want to enlarge, you go with the base of your palette left and right, and then you drag it down so that you make that back petal a bit larger in size, and you tidy up again and just put another one. Okay, then another one, and it does work super quick when you get the the hang of it. And then I'm going to do another one pretty much like in a semicircle before doing the center. Okay, and at this point I think I'm fine to do the center. And to do the center, I've got some buttercream in here and a piping nozzle number 2. And the buttercream was done exactly in the same way, but I've colored it with some yellow, and I think I've used the Square's Kitchen neon yellow, but a yellow will do, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to squeeze to make sure that I've got the icing coming through, and from here, from the base, I'm going to start piping. Now if you prefer, you can definitely use a grass nozzle, but I prefer to keep it simple with the number 2. And I know majority of you will have a grass nozzle, but just in case. Okay, if you make any mistakes, if you are afraid that whatever, you've done some petals, and if you will carry on adding some more, you might ruin what you've done, put this part into the freezer for a few minutes. It will firm up, and then you can comfortably go ahead with the rest. But literally just put as much, yellow as you like in the center. Once that's done, go back to your palette knife, get some more of the red, take the yellow out of the way. Any mistakes, if they have to be corrected, is, as I said, place everything in the fridge, in the freezer, and then take the bits away so that you don't deteriorate your whole design. Now if you want to make the flower large, wide open, you don't put the center, you keep going around complete with all the petals. Then you come with the second layer with a smaller set of petals right on the top, and then you do like perpendicular piping with your yellow. But as I'm going to do a side flower, I want the petals to come now on the top of my center, if that makes sense. Okay, so just going to get a little bit more of that buttercream and just push it up, down to make it nice and tidy. And then going in here. Okay, and then again. Okay. Anyone, any questions? Can you see me? Can you hear me? You're very quiet. Again, another one. And I'm going to clean part of the palette knife and only use the tip, as my petal in here will be much shorter. And clean the base as well, so when I wipe the palette it doesn't mess the board. Okay, as obviously I cannot stop and put this in the fridge, I will have to carry on, and because of the lightning it all turns up very soft, and whatever I put already on the board cannot get cold because the base is not chilled, it's just a fondant base. So I have to just try and not mess what I did so far. Still got a bit of a red in here. Okay, now if I touch the rest of the board, that's no problem, and I can wash it with slightly damp cloth. Okay, if you make this cream stiffer, then and if it's not so hot like it is here, you can scrape this off and place it right here. But that's not the case now because that's far too soft. I will do something similar when creating the other type of flower. Just finishing here with just a few more large size petals. Okay. Okay, and another one in here. And another one in here. Trying to move my hand so I got room where to extend the petal and drag down. Okay, now if I want to correct anything, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for the update. Just because it's so quiet in here, it just makes me think that, you know, something might not be right with the broadcast, as you never know. With this internet, sometimes it's just not behaving properly. Okay, and I can just tidy up here. I said with the damp cloth, I can just wipe the surface if needed. Now, what I did here, I put a piping nozzle. That's a 57R from PME, but it doesn't have to be a 57. It can be a larger, it can be a smaller. It doesn't have to be a PME one. It's just a petal nozzle. So I'm going to put some of my green in here just to show you how I will probably just complement with 2 or 3 leaves. So just getting a little bit more of this green in here. And I've prepared this paper piping bag, as I don't need very much, but still have to get enough so that I can create a good pressure. As you know how important is to get the right pressure when you pipe. Oops, that should be enough. Good. So good. And as I've mentioned, is an R nozzle, which it means is for right-handed. I am right-handed. So you have to make sure that you position the nozzle in the right spot. I'm sure you are familiar with Petal Nozzles, but just in case that someone was not very passionate about buttercream and did not try too much piping, this is a typical shape of the petal nozzle. Okay, so it's got a wide end and a narrow end. This is a straight petal nozzle, which means it's good for ambidextrous. So it doesn't matter if you're right-handed, left-handed, this nozzle, it will be perfect for you to pipe. Now, if you decide to pipe a curved petal, you need a curved nozzle, and you have to get the right curved nozzle for you. I always suggest, if you pop the nozzle on top of your index finger, if you're right-handed, then the wide end, as a rule of thumb, should be down, facing, say, towards the floor, because it's the one which you have to put in contact with your piping surface. So because we know the rule and we know that the wide end is always in contact with the piping surface, and we know that the narrow... Oh my god, I've got spirits in here.
Sorry, something went wrong. Please try again.
Oh yeah, sorry. One of my phones touched Siri and she started to talk, and I was just scared. Who is next to me? Okay, so the wide end, it will touch the piping surface. The narrow end, it will be on the opposite direction. If the curve of the nozzle goes towards right, then that's the right one for you, as is for right-handed. Yeah. But if you are left-handed and the curve goes to right, that's not good. So you have to get one with the wide end down, narrow end up, curve towards the left. Okay, it's a bit of a confusion when you pick curved nozzle, and I think I've got no, that's an R, but I should have a left side nozzle as well in here. Let's see if I do. I don't have too many for the... Yeah, I do have one. Okay, so this is for left-handed, but it's a bit smaller in size. When the wide end is down, narrow end is up, the curve goes to right, left. Okay, so that was just because I wanted to give you an idea about this petal nozzle. So I'm using a curved nozzle, but if you are not a huge fan of the curved nozzles, a straight petal nozzle will be as good. And what I want to pipe now is a little leaf with a petal nozzle. I know it sounds a bit weird as we use a petal nozzle to pipe a leaf, but this is a very popular leaf during the winter. So if we imagine like a line through the center, okay, and then we start creating from the base, we go with the wide end touching the surface, we go like in a little bit of a zigzag with lower and lower pressure, and then we finish with an extended point. And then from the tip, we go on the opposite side, increasing the size of the zigzag. Yeah, we create a leaf quite similar with a holly leaf. And that is great to be used on this kind of floral arrangement. So if we do it right here on the board, so first of all, I'm going to, with this nozzle, put some stems. I will try to move my hand freely so I don't get like sticks. They're more like stems. And I'm going to start piping few little leaves. So I don't have to draw that line to the center. That was just to give you an idea about what's happening in here. I will start by attaching the leaf to the stem and going with that zigzag from large to medium to small to smaller. And then I'll go on the opposite side and continue with small to medium to large and finish. Okay, so that's a kind of a leaf. And then I will do another one on this side. The smaller the petal leaf, the smaller the leaf, the smaller the petal nozzle, the smaller the leaf. So if you want smaller leaves, you have to look maybe for a 56 nozzle, and then just do the same thing in here. But I think it looks quite good. It just is a different type of leaf, not that popular when it comes to piping, as it requires a bit of practice. And when it comes to practice, people intend to buy molds and just do things with molds instead of just developing their skills. Never wish to be easy, just wish to get more skilled and do your things. But yeah, it doesn't work always. If I want to put any calyxes on this flower, even if it's a petal nozzle, I can very easy just come up with some greenery and tidy up the base of the flower if needed. And I can also connect this to my floral arrangement, and I can start building up the other flower in here. As I'm at the chapter of doing some little decorations, I'm also going sorry, I did not realize. I thought that Andrew is about to ask a question, but he was mentioning there if there are any questions for you to add them in comments. I'm going to do a little stem with my yellow buttercream, literally just few dots. So I'm going to start by attaching maybe like 4 dots, and go to the next row with 3, and then with 2, and then with 1, and I will carry on building 1 and 2, 1 and 2 to give it a bit of a curved shape, and then I will fill whatever I think it should be filled, just to give it more like a nice finishing. And same in here. I will presume that that little yellow spot is behind the foliage, and I will just come up with a few dots. They don't have to be regular. You can just do that touch-ups and just build up, still like a kind of a painting, but not with a brush. It's like with the piping nozzle. Okay, and I don't have any red, but I can put some red, and I can also make some berries here where I've got the foliage. If I put another leaf in here, I can definitely attach some berries a little bit later. But let's go now to the other flower. Now, for the other flower, I'm going to use a different kind of palette knife. Oops, where did I put my box now? Sorry, just trying to find my box with palettes. That is silly. I've got plenty in here, but not the one I'm looking for. Don't get into panic. Let me just swap the camera for now. Sorry, just one sec. I have to open my eyes wide and see where my box is. I've just had it, and I've selected my palette knives, and I cannot see the rest now. instead of keeping you entertained, look what I'm doing. Sorry, I'm just trying to find out if I put this back. It is a large box, so that's ridiculous. Don't know why I don't do it with the box. That's literally just incredible. So I'm just going to use a different palette knife. I wanted to show you that the other one was more like square, but I cannot see where the box has disappeared. No idea. That is a large box. I've got so many of those. Anyway, apologize. Oops, what have I done? Just my brain is off, I think, because of this cord. It doesn't work properly. So annoying. Okay. So I'm going to get this white and I'm going to put some icing sugar into it. Josie, yeah, I mean, I think we are all the same. We've got so many tools and so much equipment, but I've literally used that box just before the live session, and I don't know where I put it. It's just not so, I don't know. What can I say? I can only apologize. Anyway, if you will attempt to buy yourself a set, you will see that there are different shapes, and some of them are more like rectangular. And now just my brain is stuck to the fact that I cannot remember where I put it, and I cannot see it. I will definitely find it after. So I'm going to add a little bit more sugar. I can actually transfer it into here, as is going to be the last flour to show you. But I had this horrible cold, along with other things which are not quite right. This cold gave me a headache, so for 2 days I've been just lying in bed. I've never done such a thing in my life. Sleeping for like 12 hours per day with horrible sleeping, lying in bed with horrible headaches, and it was not COVID, no fever at all. It's just like horrible headaches. And I think, yeah, it just shows the brain doesn't work as it should. Okay, so I'm going to get those. Now, this time, we'll just do it a bit different. So we'll just spread some of this buttercream on the surface. And we intend to build up more like a texture finishing. Just getting little by little. You see how it gets really creasy? And that palette which I was about to use, it was a bit shorter, so when it's shorter it allows you to grab less. Oh, I did not find the box, but I find another set here, but of course it doesn't have the palette I need, as I recently bought myself another set, but that doesn't have the one I need. Okay. So that's the whole thing with this method. So you spread the cream on the surface and you get a palette. You can use the same palette, but it doesn't have to be sharp. Yeah, I'm going to use a smaller one. That seems a bit too large for me. Yeah. So I'm going to gently start and building up those new creased petals by just sticking layers of buttercream. And then once that's done, thank you, Josie, thank you. And I'm going to just transfer the petal right here. But you see, this time the petal looks super creased, and I will just do that again. So starting from here, I will just get a little bit more and more and more and more, and then place this over as well, and then again wipe clean and just start again. You can obviously adjust the length of the petal by, say for example, you want a short one, you scrape the base, and if you want the petal to look more like equal, you scrape the top as well, and you are left with strip of buttercream, and then you start building up that petal little by little, and then you create a creased texture. Yeah, and that can just be placed right here on the top. You wipe and start again, and obviously when you get confident, it works super quick. Okay, so I've made the petals on the left. Now to make the ones on the right, I've been scraping this direction. Now I have to do it in that direction. So I'm going to spread my cream on a surface. Okay, now depending on the size and the quantity you want to use, you can put more or less, you can tidy up the base, whatever. And then you start the opposite direction to build up that petal. Yeah, so, and you attach it into here. Clean, and just do the same thing. Keep building till you notice that the petal actually curls and it just comes the other way. Good, and a little bit more. Now that's a bit too small, but it will be fine to be popped in here. Then I'm going to refer to my yellow buttercream, and I can put just some zigzags. That's very soft. And I said about correcting, I should put this in the fridge before correcting. So yeah, going just to build up a cluster of stamens. Okay, just like a zigzag in the center. And I will carry on with exactly the same thing, but with smaller petals on the same kind of opposite direction, as I've got to put two small ones in here. So tidying up. See, it's all more like working out. It's like maths, you just have to make sure that you build up in the right direction, and you are keeping the tool in the right angle. That's all it is, nothing complicated. It's super easy. And if you need more inspiration, then you can just look on there are so many YouTube videos, but the one for cake decorating might not be so relevant. If you look onto a painting, a palette painting tutorial, then you will get even more details. Okay, so I have to just carry on building those little petals and attach one in here. Oops. And again in here, and if I just try another small one in here. Okay, then I will tidy up the base. Now luckily this color is so light, it's not going to stain for sure, so I don't have to wipe with a damp cloth. It's just looking good, and all I have to do is just to put a calyx. And to put the calyx, I can put like a zigzag. This looks anyway more like a wild rose, I would say. I don't know. It's a fantasy flower. It doesn't have a particular name. And I'm going to quickly use a paper piping bag, put some red and make some berries. And I think we are done. And yeah, I wanted to make it for like an hour. And I know the demonstration booked at the stand was just for half an hour, but as we are all now at home and safe, we can spend more than half an hour on a demo. So I think an hour sounds quite decent. So I've included the preparation of the buttercream as well. So I've got here a number 1 nozzle, but it doesn't matter what number you use as long as is a writing tube. So I'm just going to pop some berries, and you know how you get the dots with a plain nozzle. You start squeezing, you keep the end of the tube buried onto your icing. When you're happy with the size, you stop squeezing and do that little flick so that you can take the nozzle away. And just do the same with the second and the third. You should adapt the size of the nozzle to the size of the decoration, but if you don't want to trouble too much and keep changing the nozzles, then you can just apply a heavy pressure and get, you know, what you want. And that leaf looks a bit stiff for me. It's not quite, you know, into the right position, so I'm going to correct that by adding just another small one in here. So that it just makes more sense, and maybe just put some yellow bits just to complete, and carry on with the yellow in here, suggesting that is kind of part of the overall design. It just looks more realistic.